Henry here with another edition of SaaS Metrics School. Today, talking retention rates and renewal rates. What is the difference between these two metrics? So, of course, it's paramount to understand the health of your recurring revenue. And how do we do that? We do that through retention and renewal rates. So, these are must have metrics. Of course, there's some nuances of when I like to apply renewal rates to the type of SaaS business. So, let's dive in here. So, of course, retention. What is retention? Well, retention looks at the amount of revenue that we keep from our existing customer base. So we can measure this in the form of customer retention, so logo counts. We can do this in the form of gross dollar retention, which is looking at just what we keep after accounting for downgrades and churn. Of course, that maxes out at 100%. And then we have net dollar retention or net revenue retention, which then we get to take the credit for expansion, and hopefully expansion offsets downgrades and churn to produce a number over 100%. So, three common metrics when we're looking at retention rates. Of course, retention, we can do this on a cohort basis, we can do this on an aggregate revenue retention basis. And I've covered that in previous episodes. So, that's retention. We're looking at retention of our recurring revenue. And of course, this can apply to any recurring revenue stream. Typically, we don't measure retention on one time revenue, such as professional services. And then we have renewal rates. So, renewal rates impacts our retention ultimately, but it's kind of the tip of the iceberg for retention. So, think of a renewal as that annual contract, that multi year contract. They're coming up to the end of their 3 year term. And now we're trying to renew that customer for another 3 years or at least another year. So that's that renewal trigger. So we track that. We track the number of customers up for renewal in that renewal month and the dollars that are up for renewal. And sometimes you hear that called ATR, available to renew. So that's the renewal rate. It's just a subset of our overall retention. And it's really like cohort retention, but based on those customers who are coming up for renewal. So again, if I have 10 enterprise customers coming up for renewal in February and $1 million, we're tracking that. So how many customers renewed and how many dollars of that total renewed. So that's the renewal rate. And of course, that ultimately impacts retention. And that I see, again, it's a lagging metric, but it is the tip of the iceberg of what's happening on the front lines with our account management or our customer success team. Now, when should we apply the renewal rate? Because the renewal rate, I feel, is more for SaaS companies that are targeting mid market and enterprise businesses, so larger ACV or annual contract value sizes, because we have those annual contracts and we have those multi year contracts. And sometimes those renewals, the tip of the iceberg, gets buried in our aggregate retention. So we're not sure how we're performing on a renewal basis. So we track that separately. So I feel more applicable to mid market enterprise businesses where we have annual and multi year contracts versus self service SaaS, where we're invoicing that customer monthly or we're charging that credit card monthly. And really, the invoice kind of equals revenue recognition equals that renewal rate. So there's not any timing difference there. So that's why I apply renewal rates to larger ACV businesses. And it's a great metric to supplement your retention story and also to support your retention story in due diligence. So if you're producing some nice GDR, NDR numbers, then calculating a renewal rate is another great metric to, I don't know if it's complement or supplement, but to boost your retention story with another data point. So, a little bit about the difference between renewal rates and retention rates today. Thanks.